Suspended prison sentences, fighting a teammate, and yet somehow he managed to play for England. Joey Barton committed so many crimes on and off the field that karma eventually caught up with him, which indirectly led to his downfall and made him one of the most hated footballers of all time. It's almost as if he's always on the edge every time he steps onto the pitch. Barton's crazy idea first came to light in 2007. Barton was playing for QPR at the time, and in a training ground bust-up with his teammate, Usman Dabo, he flipped the switch and lost it. This was deep. The crazy part is, Barton didn't deny doing it. When the case became blown and the court got involved, Barton didn't only get a 6-month ban, he also got a suspended prison sentence as well, and this should have been enough to keep any sane person out of trouble again. In Dabo's words, Barton made him look like the elephant, but this was only the start. 3 years back in 2005, Barton was already getting negative press. His brother Michael got jailed for life after his cousin Paul Taylor was accused of killing 18-year-old Anthony Walker. The case was a big stain on his family record, but it also gave an insight into the kind of background Barton was coming from. Barton's past was just as unstable as his career. His parents separated when he was 14, and in the troubled city of Merseyside, with drugs and the crime rate high at the time, it seemed like Barton had beat the problem. His grandma seemed to have given him a way out of trouble and a path to football. Barton decided to take football more seriously, and even though he was rejected by Everton early on, he managed to make the cut at Manchester City. But it was all a facade. The real guy hiding inside was only getting ready to explode. He was already on the books of Manchester City now, and even though he'd managed to keep it decent for a while, Barton's true character started to show. In 2004, City was facing Southampton in the league, and just before the kickoff, Barton found out he wasn't going to play. And what did he do? Drove off and left. This was still only the beginning. Later that year, in a friendly against Doncaster Rovers, Barton showed just how dangerous he could be. It was supposed to be a friendly, and yet the damage he caused by starting a big fight was a major stain on the team's reputation. Now the fines were adding up for Barton, and Manchester City wasn't so sure if they wanted to continue with him anymore. It didn't help when the same guy, who was supposed to be a role model to the younger players, was the same one attacking them. Now this was at a Christmas party for the younger players in the City squad, and Barton felt disrespected by Jamie Tandy. So he hit him in the eye with a lit cigar, another fine from City. This time, he's suspended for 6 weeks, and the crazy part is that he blamed all of this on him being misunderstood. The guy really had no regard for anyone, not his teammates, managers, and certainly not the rival fans. He was already on league watch by the FA for some dangerous decisions in 2005. He'd broken the leg of a 35-year-old in Liverpool after dragging out late one morning, got out in Bangkok with the team for pre-season, and still couldn't manage to keep his act together. He picked a fight with a 15-year-old. In particular, Barton seemed to be directing his abuse to the one place where he should have at least gotten any little form of support in his career, home. He was born and raised in Everton, and yet he couldn't stop picking fights with the locals there. In 2006, as Everton, Barton was at it again. Now, I don't know if he thought this was meant to be funny, but in a professional setting such as the Premier League, Barton's actions were a disgrace. He got fined for his actions again and warned by the FA. And at this point, Barton didn't care. The thing is, he was just hell-bent on causing as much trouble as he would. The problem was that Barton hadn't done anything extremely over the top yet. Most of his actions were off the pitch, so it's almost like he could get away with it. And the height of it all was when, for the first time, he got called up to the national team. The reason this was such a big deal wasn't simply because of the stuff he'd done in the past. No, Barton had a habit of criticizing players on the national team. In 2006, after the Three Lions got knocked out of the World Cup, Barton, who was still a player at the time, came at the guys who decided to document their journey. He made no sense that 1 year later, he was getting his national team debut. Barton never stayed off the radar despite all of this. Still, in the same year, got arrested after getting accused of attacking a taxi driver, and all of this was simply piling up for City and Barton. They were near the edge now, and after the Usman Dabo incident from 2007, it tipped the scale and made everything fall over. City decided they'd seen enough, and in the summer of 2007, they sold him for $5.8 million to Newcastle United. And in classic Joey Barton style, he didn't leave without saying a final word. He called out the manager. At his new club, Barton kept his attitude up. He'd already gotten on the edge after this two-footed against Dixon, Idaho. Again, no attempt to play the ball, just wanted to clear him. And just before the year ran out, he was off embarrassing his club side again. Got into a fight at McDonald's in the Liverpool city centre. This wasn't even a fight. Barton beat the person multiple times. This time, there was no suspended prison sentence. He spent the new year in prison. Finally, behind bars, this should have been Barton's wake-up call. Getting a prison sentence as a Premier League player was embarrassing enough. He was released later, but when the case escalated in May, Barton was sentenced to 74 days in prison. By the time Barton came back, the management had changed. Alan Shearer was the new manager in charge. Barton didn't like the guy, so he resorted to calling him names in the dressing room and dividing the team, leading to him getting banned. This guy was football's very own version of the bad guy, and no matter the horrible things he did on the pitch, it just felt like he kept getting away with it. Newcastle versus Blackburn Rovers in 2010, and he was once again in the headlines for the wrong reasons. Caught punching Marcus Peterson in the gut. Newcastle, just like Manchester City, had taken enough. They couldn't continue to watch the guy cost them week in and week out. It was very hard to talk about his performances on the field, because the stuff he did off it was always more. Barton, on his part, wasn't ready to change. The club put him on the transfer list in 2011, and newly promoted QPR decided to take a chance on him and see if a move to London would make him a changed man. Big mistake. They were regretting this transfer only a couple of months in. QPR had a difficult start to the new season, and after manager Neil Warnock got sacked, Barton came at him. He didn't stop there. See, Barton had claimed the FA was trying to moderate his language and the stuff he posted on Twitter at the time, when in truth, he was always on the attack on social media. This time he took it to the FA and came at them as well. All of this, however, was building up to a moment that would change everything. Barton's downfall was just around the corner. He didn't know it, and it came at him in the most unexpected game of the season. Now QPR was facing Manchester City in the Premier League on the final day of the 2011-12 season. Barton returned to QPR from his loan, but not much had changed. The incident from 2012 had put a permanent scar on him, and no one really wanted him to play for them any longer. His next move was to Burnley, and here it seemed like he'd finally be able to stay off controversy. After a decent season with Burnley, he made the team of the season in the Championship, but Barton was only putting his bad attitude on holiday. Rangers made a move for him in the summer, and it was a they end up regretting. Less than 2 months in, as a result, the FA hit him with one of the biggest fines in the league's history. They banned him for 18 months, which meant he was set to miss almost 2 seasons of league football. After he appealed, Barton had his ban reduced to 13 months, but at this point, he knew he was done. There was no coming back from this, and in the summer of 2017, Barton was forced to retire as a disgrace from the game. He'd been trouble from day one, and now he was out. No testimonial match, no tributes, nothing. He retired from football as one of the most hated guys in the game. Barton decided his next step was to go into coaching. He became manager of Fleetwood Town after he retired, but he was still the same guy. And even down in the lower leagues of the second division, he was still as violent as ever. Fighting with another manager in the tunnel has to be a new low.